We begin the Gemara today in the bottom of Daf Hey Amud Beis, the very last few words. It said in the Mishnah, got it? Eizehu cotton, kol she'enu yachal lirkov al kseifa shel aviv. Who is a cotton? Somebody that can't ride on his father's shoulders, and that is to come from Yerushalayim until the Harabayis, as Rashi explained in the Mishnah. This is the opinion of Beis Shammai. So the Gemara now asks on this, Maskef lo Rab Zera. Rab Zera asked, Ad hocha man asyei, or I say, up until this point, until Yerushalayim, who brought him here? So Rashi explains, he came over here till Yerushalayim, he probably came without his mother. Because the Gemara at this point is assuming that since his mother is not chayiv in the mitzvah to be oile regel, so his mother doesn't have to come. So he came over here without his mother. So if you can come to Yerushalayim until this point without his mother, so probably he came, his father riding on his father's shoulders till there. So if he can come until there, so then why can't he go from here, from Yerushalayim to the Harabayis? Amalei Abayis, Abaye answered him, no, maybe he did come with his mother to Yerushalayim. Up until Yerushalayim, his mother is not chayv to be oile regel, to come to the Azara, or to bring a carbon in the Azara, but she does join her husband because she has the mitzvah of simcha, to be together with her husband for the simcha of Yom Tov, as Rashi brings, l'smoyach b'chagim baila. So therefore, I see seime, his mother brought him until here. But mikam ve'elech, and that's what Beis Shammai is saying, from here, going from Yerushalayim to the Harabayis, so here his mother is not obligated to go to the Harabayis. Im yochel lales v'lechas b'yodeh shel aviv Yerushalayim l'Harabayis chayiv. If he can go up, and this is according to Beis Hillel's opinion, if he can go up holding his father's hand from Yerushalayim to Harabayis, then he'll be chayiv. V'iloi potter. If not, he's going to be potter. Talk to Gemara, Heishiv Rebbe Tachas Beis Hillel L'divrei Beis Shammai. Rebbe, instead of Beis Hillel themselves, answered to Beis Shammai and asked the following question on their opinion. The pasuk says, and this is a pasuk by Shmuel Hanavi, when he was a baby. So his mother says, V'chana lo yalsa. Chana did not go up with him to Beis Hamikdash, or in that time actually was in the Mishkan that was in Shiloh. Ki Omra Liisha, she said to her husband, Ad Yigamel Hanar, I'm waiting until the child will be, as Rashi says, after he finishes nursing from his mother, after he's 24 months, then Vavi Yosef. Then I will bring him to the Mishkan. That's the pasuk. So based on this, they asked him Beis Shammai's opinion. Beis Shammai said that as long as he could ride on the father's shoulders, so you should be mechanech him and bring him to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, Shmuel, at this age, Shmuel, he's able to ride on his father's shoulders. He's a 2-year-old, and he's able to come, almost 2 years old, and he's able to come on his father's shoulders. And nevertheless, Chana, his mother, says that I'm not bringing him. So you see over here that this is not yet the age to come. Amalei Avua, so Rebbe's father, which asked this question, said to him, according to the question that you just asked, Chana Gufa. Why didn't you ask about Chana herself that told her husband that I'm not joining you, I'm not coming? Is she herself, as we said before, not obligated to come and join her husband, at least until Yerushalayim, because of the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov to be with her husband? So why didn't she come? And then she'll come together with her son. So the answer is, Elo Chana mifankuse yiserte chazyebe b'Shmuel. Chana saw her son Shmuel was very, very delicate. It was very difficult for him to come. So therefore, she was concerned about Shmuel, that for him, it'll be difficult, he'll become sick or weak in traveling in this way, and therefore she didn't take him. So therefore, there's no raya from this pasuk to the point we're speaking about carrying on the shoulders, because Shmuel was different. As we see that she didn't want to even come, so it must be that he's different. Rab Shimon asked the question, or there's a greatest over here, Rab Shimon ben Lakish, it's Lakish that asked the question, cotton chiger, a cotton that's lame. The divrei Beis Shammai, so the question is according to the opinion of Beis Shammai, that says that as long as a cotton could be carried on the father's shoulders, so you should bring him. Right, so this is a question according to Beis Shammai. According to Beis Hillel, that says that the cotton has to be able to hold on his father's hand and walk from Yerushalayim to the Harabayis. So a cotton that's a chiger, and he has a hard time walking, so this is not even a question. But the question is, according to Beis Shammai, that says, as long as he could ride on his father's shoulders. Or Vesuma, or a cotton which is blind. The Divrei Shneim, and this is a question both according to Beis Hillel and according to Beis Shammai, because even if he's blind, as long as he holds on his father's hands, he can walk with his father from Yerushalayim to the Harabayis. So Maho, the question is, are we chayiv to be mechanech them, to bring them to B'Oile Regel? So both a chiger and a summa, if you're a gadol and you're lame or you're blind, you're not obligated in the mitzvah. So the question is, if it's a cotton that's lame or blind, would we be obligated to be mechanech them for this mitzvah? So the Gemara explains, when would this question be a question? Hey Chidami, what was Reb Shimon ben Lakish asking here? Are we speaking about a cotton that's lame and he's not going to heal? He was born this way and it's not going to heal. Or or a child that's blind and he's not going to ever see. So now what's the question? So hashta gadol potter. If when he's a gadol he would be potter, cotton mibaya. Needless to say that a cotton would be potter as well. Why should he be chayiv? So Rashi here says a very fundamental point. The rule when it comes to chinuch is, the whole point of chinuch is to train the child that he should behave in this way to fulfill the Torah mitzvahs, so that when he gets older, he should continue doing it. But if he's not going to ever be chayiv in these mitzvahs, so then there would be no chiyuv of chinuch that applies. So the Gemara explains, so the only time we have this question here is, we're talking about a child that's lame that's going to heal, or a child that's blind that's able to see again. So that's the question over here. What's the halacha of this child? Are we chayiv to be mechanechim or not? Abaye said, Kol heiche de gadol mechayiv midiraisa, cotton nami mechanchinon. Whenever you have a cotton that's chayiv minatayre, so then for a cotton you have to train him and that he should do the mitzvahs as well. But again, mechanchinon le midrabanan. Kol heiche de gadol potter midiraisa. If it's a gadol, then in this kind of situation minatayre he would be potter midrabanan. Bachad's your cotton and Ami potter with the Rabbanon, he's also going to be potter with the Rabbanon. So therefore, if in this time, this situation that he's in now, he's lame or he's blind, and in Atayr he would be potter. So as a child, Chachamim would never mechayiv a child more than what the Torah was mechayiv. Even though he is going to become healthy again, and you might think that it would be beneficial for him to do it in order to be mechanechim, but nevertheless, currently he's a lame or blind. Chachamim will not mechayiv with their chiyuv more than the chiyuv is minatayra. Going back to the Mishnah, so it said in the Mishnah, B'Shamay Yaimrim, Hari'iyeh Shtei Kesef Chulu, that the mitzvah of Eilas Ri'iyeh, you should spend more money for the carbon Eilah that you bring, which is 2 Kesef, and for the carbon Shalmei Chagigah, you could spend only half of that, only one silver coin. And Basil said the opposite, that when it comes to the Shalmei Chagigah, over there you should spend 2 silver coins, and when it comes to the Eilas Ri'iyeh, there only 1 silver coin. So the Gemara is going to bring a Braisa that explains this machlekes. Taner Rabbanon, so we learned in the Braisa, Beishamai Yomrim Beishamai say, Hari'iyeh Shtei Kesef, the carbon Eilas Ri'iyeh is 2 Kesef, a Chagigah more Kesef, and the Chagigah is 1 more Kesef. What's the reason for this? Because the carbon Eilas Ri'iyeh, since it's all being burnt in the Mizbeach, so this carbon is more significant. It's all being given for Hashem. Which is not the case with the Chagigah. Part of it goes to the Kainim and part of it goes to the owner. Another thing, Matzinu Bat Seres, we see on Shavuos the carbon that's brought with the Shtei Alechem. So they brought a lot of carbonas together with the Shtei Alechem. So we see there, Sheriba Be'en Akasav Ba'Eilis Yaisim B'Shlamim. So the carbonas that are brought there's much more Eilis that are brought than Shlamim. There are 10 Eilis, I believe it is, and then the rest are Shlamim. But there's much more Eilis that are brought than Shlamim. So that shows that a carbon Eilah is more important. So you spend more money on the Eilah. Beisilo say the reverse. Ma kasef. It's the carbon Eilas Ri'iyeh that you invest only 1 ma. The Chagigah shtei kasef, and the carbon Chagigah, the Shalmei Chagigah, that's 2 kasef. And the reason is shechagigah yeshna lefnei adibur, because we see that the Chagigah is a kind of carbon that the Yidden brought yet before Matan Torah. As the Gemara is soon going to bring the psukim. You don't find the carbon Eilas Ri'iyeh that you didn't brought that before Matan Torah. So therefore the carbon Chagigah is more chashiv. And another thing, you look at the carbonis that the Nesiim brought, right? Starting from the Shchodesh Nisan, all the Nesiim brought the carbonis, Sheriba be'en akasav b'shlamim yaisim b'eilas. That there the Nesiim brought more shlamim than eilas. Okay, so each one, Bishamai, Basil, will have the sources for their opinion. Now the Gemara explains why each one disagrees with the other, why they didn't want to use the other source. Why do they not follow what Beishamai said, which is that the carbon Eilas Ri'iyeh is all the Gevaya, it's all burnt in the Mizbeach, so that's much more important. So the Ka'amrit, because Beis Hillel says this, that you say that Ri'iyeh Adife Do'ila Kol Legavaya, that the carbon oilus Ri'iyeh is more important, that it all goes and it's burnt on the Mizbeach. Adarabba. I'll tell you, no, on the contrary. Chagigah Adife. The carbon Chagigah is more important. The Ispa Shtei Achilas. Because no, the very fact that there's an Achila for the Mizbeach, and then there's the Achila that's also for the people, which is for the Kainim and for the Bailim, that's more important. You have to have more, you have to invest more in the carbon, so there should be enough for the two Achilas that there are in this carbon. The Rebbe in the Sikha speaks about this Gemara, explaining this machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and the Rebbe explains that one of the things that you see in Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel's arguments throughout Shas is that Beis Shammai looks at the general approach of what something is. When you want to determine something, you have to look b'chlalos at it. Beis Hillel looks at the details. And therefore what Beis Shammai is saying is, if you look at the difference between a oilas riyah and a shlamim, generally speaking, a oilas riyah is more important. It's all given away to Hashem. Beis Hillel says, if you look into the details, you'll see that the emes is, even the achila of the kainim and the bailim, it's also an achila which is a mitzvah. It's also a chelik of an achila, which it's worthy to invest into for the purpose of the carbon.
Can we say that it's quantity versus quality?
Sort of, maybe, okay. Yeah, that's the hezbollah the Rebbe says there. Weiter, the Gemara says, the ka'amret, and this that Beis Shammai said, Neilif matzeres, that you learn out the importance of a carbon oilus ri'iyah, more than the Chagigah from Shavuos. So he says, no, we don't learn from Shavuos. You learn from the Nesiim. Why? Done in carbon yachid, we learn the carbon of a yachid here, which is oilus ri'iyah, is a carbon of every individual. From a carbon yachid that the Nesiim brought, they ain't done in carbon yachid, carbon sibur. We don't learn out the carbon yachid from the carbon sibur, which is in Shavuos, that's a carbon sibur. Okay, so that explains why Beis Hillel disagreed with Beis Shammai's opinion. Now the reverse, the Beis Shammai, my time el Amri ki Beis Hillel. Why did Beis Shammai disagree with Beis Hillel? Because they Ka'amrit Chagigah Difa the Yeshnu Lefnei Adibor. Beis Hillel said that the carbon Chagigah we find, it was brought before Matan Torah. Re'iyah nami Yeshnu Lefnei Adibor. Beis Shammai that is disagrees, and they say that the carbon Oilas Re'iyah was also brought before Matan Torah. The Gemara is soon going to bring the psukim for this. This that Beis Hillel says that you learn out from the Nesiim that brought their karbanis, that it brought more shlamim than oilus. We don't learn from the Nesiim. Why not? Donin davar hanayeg l'dairis midavar hanayeg l'dairis. Because we learn out from Shavuos, which is something that is a mitzvah in all generations, every single year, to this halacha of the oilus ri'iyah, which is, or the shalmi chagigah that's brought every single year, or every single yontif. Vein don and davar hanayeg l'dairis midavar shein hanayeg l'dairis. We don't learn out from this mitzvah of every generation from the karbanis of the Nesiim, which was only that time. It was a one-time thing that they brought their karbanis. Okay, so now the next whole long piece of Gemara here is going to focus on this detail that it seems like they're arguing about a fact. Was there a carbon oilus ri'iyah before Matan Torah or not? There are the psukim in the end of Parashas Mishpatim where it speaks about karbanis that the Yidden brought before Matan Torah. So Beis Hillel said that there was no oilus ri'iyah over there, and Beis Shammai says there was. So what's going on? So the Gemara explains. Well, Beis Hillel, now according to Beis Hillel, what's the difference that the carbon chagigah that the Yidden then brought before Matan Torah d'chsiv, as the pasuk there says, vayizbechu zvachim shlamim, that they shachted the karbanis of shlamim. Re'iyah nami, if so, a carbon of oila that they brought because of re'iyah, because they're coming to see Hashem by Matan Torah, they also brought there. Haksiv, the pasuk says, vayalu oilos, that they brought oilos before Matan Torah. So Beis Shammai is right, there was oilus there as well. The Gemara answers, no, kasavri Beis Hillel holds, Oila, shehekriv Yisrael b'midbar, that oila that the Yidden brought in the midbar even before Matan Torah, oilas tomid havai. That's a carbon oilas tomid, just like every day in the Beis HaMikdash. You have to bring the carbon tomid in the morning and at night. Already before Matan Torah, the Yidden brought this carbon oilas tomid. That's what it's talking about, but it's not a oilas re'iyah. Okay, so in other words, the question is, when the Yidden brought this oila, was it a special carbon oila that the Yidden brought in connection to the revelation of Matan Torah, because they come to see Hashem by Matan Torah, or no, it was just the oilas tamid that the Yidden brought even before Matan Torah. So Beis Hillel says it was the oilas tamid, so we can't learn from there. Or Beis Shammai savri, so Beis Shammai's opinion is, oila she'ekrivi Yisrael b'midbar, oilas re'iyavai, that oila that they brought was not the oilas tamid, it was a special oila that they brought because of the revelation by Matan Torah. So therefore, we could learn from there that the Eilas Re'iyah is just as important as the Shalmi Chagigah, or actually according to Beishamai, it's more important because it's totally burnt on the Mizbeach. So now that the Gemara brought this, the Gemara is going to bring from different sources, different Tanoim, where we see that this is an argument that many different Tanoim spoke about regarding the nature of this carbon oila that they brought before Matan Torah. Was it the Eilas Tamid, which is the same Eilas Tamid that's brought in all future generations every day? Or is it a special Eilas Re'iyah that they brought then in connection to the revelation at Matan Torah? Amar Abaye, so Abaye said, Beishamai. So we have here Beishamai, and then Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shmuel, or the Bach switches it. First Rabbi Shmuel and then Rabbi Lazar. Kulu Sviruluhu. They are all of the opinion that Eilas Shekrivi Yisrael Midbar Eilas Riyavoy, that the carbon Eilas Riyah that they brought was a Eilas Riyah special for Matan Torah, not the Eilas Tamid of all generations. Beis Hillel, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and these three Tanoim, Kulus Svirulu, they all hold Eilah Shekriv Yisrael Midbar, Eilas Tamid Avai. That the Eilah that they brought was an Eilah, the Eilas Tamid that you didn't bring every day. So the Gemara brings the sources for this. Beishamai Hodamara. So Beishamai is what we just brought here. That Beishamai holds that you can't learn out regarding the Eilas Riyah from before Matan Torah because it was an Eilas Tamid. Rabbi Shmuel, where do we see Rabbi Shmuel holds the same? The Tanya, because we learned in Abraham says follows. Rabbi Shmuel says, Klalos Nemru B'Sinai. You have a lot of mitzvahs that the Eibusha said at Har Sinai, but there they were only said in general. The details of the mitzvahs were not yet fully explained over there. Rashi brings an example. It says, right after Matan Torah, in the end of Parshas Yisro, the pasuk says, Mizbeach Adom Etaseli V'Zavachta Olav Eselesecha V'Shlomecha. Build for me a Mizbeach and you'll bring your karbanis. It doesn't say any details about the Mizbeach or about the karbanis. So the details, where were the details said? Upratos Ba'al Ma'id. And then the details about the karbanis and about all mitzvahs that the Eibusha spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu later from the Oyel Moed, that's where only then did he hear all the details. But before then, the Yidden only got the mitzvahs without the details. Rabbi Akiva disagrees. He says, Klalos, Uparatos, Nemru, B'Sinai, all the mitzvahs in general, and including all the details as well, they weren't already told to Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. Then V'Nishnu, Ba'al Ma'id, the Eibusha reviewed it with him again and told him all the details from the Oyel Moed. And V'Nishtalshu, that is, Ba'arvis Mayav. And then they were said to Moshe Rabbeinu a third time by Arvis Mayav before they came into Eretz Yisrael, as Rashi brings the pasuk, Hoyel Moshe Be'eres HaTorah, he explained the Torah to Yidden again, so they were said to the Yidden a third time. So now going back to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. According to Rabbi Shmuel, when the Yidden got the mitzvah of Karbanis by Har Sinai, they only had it in general. The details they did not have yet at that point. Now if so, if you're going to say that Eilah Sheikri Yisrael B'Midbar, Eilas Tamid Avai, that the Eilah that the Yidden brought at that time in the Midbar, by Matan Torah, after Matan Torah, and even before Matan Torah, if you're going to say that this is an Eilas Tamid, in other words, this is the regular carbon Eilas Tamid that Yidden bring every single day for all future generations. The question then is going to be, could you say that this is possible, that that this carbon, in the beginning, they did not know the details, and therefore they did not have to do the mitzvah with all the details. They did not have to remove the skin and cut the pieces to be brought in the Mizbeach, the way the mitzvah was said later with all the details. And only later did it change, and now once they got the details, now they have to take off the skin and cut it up and bring it on the Mizbeach. In other words, the Gemara's question is, the Gemara has a premise that it doesn't make sense to say that this Eilas Tamid at an earlier time period was brought in one way, and at a later time period it changed and they brought it in a different way. And therefore, since we see that later it was done with Hefshet V'Nituach, it makes sense that it was always done this way. But if, according to Rabbi Shmuel, if you would say that the carbon oila that they brought in the beginning was also the Eilas Tamid, that would mean that this Eilas Tamid was changed. In the beginning, they brought it in one way, and then later they changed it, and then they got new details to the mitzvah, and it was changed. And the Gemara holds at this point, at least, that this is not mistaber, it doesn't make sense. And therefore, the conclusion of the Gemara is that according to Rabbi Shmuel, the carbon oila that they brought at that time period was not an Eilas Tamid. It was a special carbon oila that was brought as a Eilas Re'iyah in connection to the revelation at Har Sinai. This is like the opinion of Beishamai. Rabbi Lazar, where do we see that Rabbi Lazar holds the same? The Tanya will learn in Abraisa. Oilas Tamid Asuya Bahar Sinai. So it says this is the Oilas Tamid that was brought in Har Sinai. Rabbi Lazar says Maaseha Nemru B'Sinai, that the Maise of this carbon oil was said by Har Sinai, but Vihiatzma Loi Karva. But this actual Oilas Tamid was not brought at Har Sinai because it was a different oil. It was Oilas Re'iyah in connection to Matan Torah, like Beishami's opinion. Rabbi Kiva in the Braisa argues and he says, Karva, no, at that point, already by Har Sinai, they did bring the Oilas Tamid, B'shuv Loi Pascha. And from then forward, they never stopped bringing this carbon. Every day, the Yidden brought this carbon. Elo ma'ani mekayim. So how do I teach a pasuk, which is a pasuk in Amos that says, Hazvachim u'mincha hegashtem li bamidbar arbaim shana. Karbanis and mincha did you bring to me? Did Yidden bring a karbanis to the Eibishter for 40 years? Beis Yisrael, all the Yidden in the Midbar. This is a pasuk which is basically saying that for the 40 years that the Yidden were in the Midbar, they did not bring any karbanis. So how could the pasuk say Oilas Tamid Asui B'Har Sinai, that they brought the Oilas Tamid at Har Sinai? So this is all part of the Brais here. So Rabbi Kiva explains, what does this mean? Shifta Shalevi Shalayavda Avedizare. It was Shevet Levi that did not serve Avedizare by the Egel. They are the ones that brought the karbanis, meaning that the karbanis that were not brought from the money that usually came from all the Klal Yisrael. That's what Rashi here says. That the Shevet Levi brought from their own money, and they were the ones that brought these karbanis. Okay, so now going back to what we said before, that Beis Hillel disagrees with all of this, right? Beis Hillel says that the carbon oil that was brought at Har Sinai was the Oilas Tamid, that is. It was only the Oilas Tamid, it was not the Oilas Re'iyah. And therefore you can't learn from there to the Oilas Re'iyah. So Beis Hillel Hadamaran. Beis Hillel says that it was the Oilas Tamid, as we said before. Rabbi Kiva Hanami Damaran. Rabbi Kiva that we just quoted there, that Rabbi Kiva said that it was the Oilas Tamid that was brought there. And Rabbi Yossi Glili also says that the oila that they brought before Har Sinai was the oilas Tamid and not an oilas Riyah. The Tanya, as we learned in Abraisa, Rabbi Yossi Glili said, Shalosh mitzvahs nitztavi Yisrael ba'alei samur l'regel. Yidden have 3 mitzvahs that they're commanded to do when they come to be oile regel on the Yom Tov to the Beis HaMikdash. What are the 3 mitzvahs? Re'iyah, the Chagigah, the Simcha. The carbon re'iyah that you have to bring, then the carbon chagigah, and then there's another carbon of simcha. If you don't have enough meat to eat for the Yom Tov, so you have to bring a carbon shalmi simcha, which is the main mitzvah of simchas Yom Tov, to eat the meat of the carbon. Those are the 3 mitzvahs. Then Rabbi Yossi Glili continues and says, Yesh b're'iyah she'ein b'shteyim. There's a certain advantage that the carbon oilas re'iyah has that the other 2 doesn't have. Yesh b'chagigah she'ein b'shteyim. There's a certain advantage that the chagigah has that the others don't. And yesh b'simcha she'ein b'shteyim. And there's an advantage that the carbon simcha has that the others don't. And he explains, Yesh b're'iyah she'ein b'shteyim. There's the advantage to the carbon re'iyah that the others don't have. That sha're'iyah oila kula l'gavaya. The carbon re'iyah is all brought on the Mizbeach, burnt completely. So that's a special Maila. Mashenkim b'shteyim, which is not the case with the other 2 karbanis. Yesh b'chagigah mashein b'shteyim. There is an advantage that the carbon chagigah has that the others don't have. Shechagigah yeshna lefnei adibur. The carbon chagigah was already brought before Matan Torah. Mashenkim mashein b'shteyim, which is not the case with the oilas re'iyah or with the shalmi simcha. So right over here you see that Rabbi Yossi Glili holds like Beis Hillel, that before Matan Torah, the oila that they brought then was the oilas Tamid, not an oilas Riyah. And yesh b'simcha ma'ashein b'shteyem, then there is an advantage to the shalmi simcha that the others don't have. Sha'simcha noiheges ba'anoshim u'benoshim. The mitzvah of the simcha of Yom Tov with the carbon, the meat, the mitzvah of simchas Yom Tov is for the men and for the women. Okay, Atkan. So this concludes the point that Abaye said before, that we have various different Tanoim that are arguing, and they're the same 2 opinions of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding the carbon oila before Matan Torah, whether it was an oilas Tamid or an oilas Re'iyah. But now the Gemara returns to the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael that we brought before to prove that he holds that the carbon they brought before Matan Torah was an oilas Re'iyah, and the Gemara will refute this. Dr. Gemara, Rabbi Yishmael, according to Rabbi Yishmael, my time mislei ke Beis Shammai. Why are you saying that Rabbi Yishmael holds like Beis Shammai's opinion? Why would we do such a thing? We never paskin like Beis Shammai. So why would we say that Rabbi Yishmael agrees dafka to Beis Shammai? Isal kedaitach. So what was the svara that you said before? Because you said as follows: if you're going to say Oyla shekriv Yisrael b'midbar Oylas Tamid Avai, that the Oyla they brought then was Oylas Tamid mi ikemidi, is it possible to say the meikare loy boy efshet v'nituach, that in the beginning when they brought it they didn't know the halachas yet? Rabbi Shmuel said they didn't get the details yet. So in the beginning the carbon was brought in one way without cutting it the way it was supposed to be done later, and then it'll be safe boy efshet v'nituach, and then this halacha changed later and the nature of the carbon changed later. The Gemara before said this doesn't make sense. But the Gemara says that's not a question, because according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, we're going to have to say so anyways. For Rabbi Yossi Aglili the Amar, Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, Oyla shekriv Yisrael b'midbar Oylas Tamid Avai, that the Oyla that they brought then before Matan Torah was an Oylas Tamid. And meikara loy boy efshet v'nituach, and in the beginning they did not know the halachas, all the details, and they did not have to cut it and bring it on the mizbeach that way. And later they didn't change, and then they did have to take off the skin and cut it. Where do we see that Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds that it changed? The Tanya says clearly in a Braise that Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer, Oyla shekriv Yisrael b'midbar, the Oyla that they brought in the midbar before they knew the halachas, eina tu'una efshet v'nituach. They did not have to cut it into pieces and bring it on the Mizbeach. Only after they built the Mishkan and the Eibush said the details from the El Mayid, then the halacha of this carbon changed. So just like according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, you could say the halacha changed. Say the same according to Rabbi Shmuel. Why are you forcing Rabbi Shmuel to hold like Beis Shammai if we never paskin like Beis Shammai? So therefore the Gemara says, you're right, Sami Mikan Rabbi Shmuel. Erase Rabbi Shmuel from this list that he holds like Beis Shammai. He does not, there's no proof for that. Okay, one more piece, let's finish the Indian there. Boy Rav Chisda asks a question. Since we brought up this karbanis that they brought before Matan Torah, so the Gemara asks a question regarding the psukim there and those karbanis. Hi Kra, this pasuk that it says there, Hey Chiksiv, how do you read it? It says, Vayishlach es nari b'nei Yisrael, and Vayalu oilois kvasim. They brought oilois, carbon oilois from kvasim, from lambs, and then it says Vayizbuchu zvachim shlamim lashem, and they brought also shlamim, and then it says parim, from bulls. So the question is, do you read it as parim, that the parim goes on the shlamim, that the shlamim that they brought, that was from the bulls, and the oilois that they brought are from kvasim? That's one way how to read the pasuk. Or maybe the way you read the pasuk is idi v'idi parim havu. Or maybe when it says in the end of the pasuk parim, the bulls, it's not only going on the shlamim, but it's also going on the oilus that are mentioned in the beginning of the pasuk. So the Gemara says, Lamai nafkimina. Why is it relevant to know exactly what those karbanis were that they brought them? Why are we asking this question? Taisus over here says that this is similar to the question that the Gemara asks many, many times. Mai dahava hava. It's a question about the past which has no relevance for any halacha today. So why was he asking this question? So the Gemara explains. Mazutra says, Lepisuk taimim. The question is being asked regarding the trop, regarding the tune that we say when the Balkaida reads from the Torah, right? So the question is, do you have to make an asnachta? Do you have to make a break and say, Vayishlach asnari b'nei Yisrael vayalu oilos kvasim? And there you have to make sort of a break. Rashi says either an asnachta or a zakev cotton, which is also a tune that makes sort of a break. And then you read on Vayizbuchu zvachim shlamim lashem parim as a separate thing. Or you don't make a break. You have to sing it with one tune that it's one continuation. So it's partially a question about the timing. That's one answer. This would be relevant to a person that makes the following neder. He makes a vow and he says, Harei alai oila, I take upon myself to bring an oila, ka oila shekrivi Yisrael b'midbar, like the oila that Yidden brought in the midbar. So the question is, what does he have to bring? Parim havu, were they bulls and he has to bring bulls? Like kavasam havu, or they were lambs and he only has to bring lambs. Teiku, this question remains unanswered.
If you say idividi parim havu, so what was the kvasim?
So they had kvasim and parim, both. That's what it has to mean, yeah.